the leadership of royalty. We sat at the king's table. We were seated at the Shulchan HaMelech. So when did that start to disappear? The position that the Jewish people had in Bavel. We were an honored people.
But, okay, I mean, putting it aside, I mean, it doesn't seem like, certainly this is several kings. Right, I understand, but again, at this point, right, we're well past, many kings, and in fact, many kingdoms past that point. Right, but we're still many kings and many kingdoms past that point. So I don't know.
It's only the war between.
Exactly, there's a coup, right? And then King Koresh tells everyone they can go back. And again, there's 4 kings between that and this point. But again, we don't. Again,
it's really not understood as being sold as slaves. I really disagree.
Okay, but you're certainly entitled to your take on that.
Does he give in his footnotes on that? And any Mari Makomos, does he base it on anything, or is it just
But the term abade?
Yeah, no. About what Haman was initially trying to do, and then when he negotiated with Achashverosh.
Oh yeah, no, I think he bases it on the ambiguity of the term abed and how it gets used in different ways.
It doesn't have a source for it. That's what I'm saying.
Right, and again, there's no indication there's any demotion of the people, because again, the king doesn't know who these people are. Either the people who Haman are trying to kill, or the people who Esther is trying to save. She doesn't use the term Yehudim either. She just says my people, which brings us to Rabbi Foreman. So Rabbi Foreman takes a different tack, and he suggests what is the political problem the king needs to deal with. Right, what king is faced with a major political crisis, which is in the very first pasuk. Right, what are we told by King Achashverosh? He reigns from Hodu until Cush, 127 provinces. What's the problem? He doesn't want to be king of 127 provinces. He wants to be emperor of one empire. But he doesn't have one empire. He has 127 provinces. Like we talked about earlier, right? There's all this indication, civil war, Bigtan and Teresh are being disloyal to him. And again, what's the position of Bigtan and Teresh, right? What's their job? They're Shomrei Hasaf. Right? They are the guardians of the threshold, which is right, the king's own personal guard. Right? The palace guard, which is traditional.
Bodyguard, basically.
Possibly bodyguards, right? But certainly, generally people who would be, very trusted officials. And if these own people are betraying him, right? Again, he's paranoid for a reason, or at least cautious for a reason. So, what is the king going to do? How is the king going to solve his problem of having 127 provinces? Many of whom, by the way, if you're king from Hodu until Cush, right? So who are you king over, right? So you've got, Somalia and Ethiopia. You've got India and Pakistan, right? There's a lot of countries, that's obviously anachronistic, but there's a lot of countries that hate each other. He's trying to unify under one empire, under one flag. So how does he do that? So he has a brilliant idea, right? He invites everybody together for a giant party. And they'll be singing and dancing and debauching and whatnot, right? And this is in stark contrast to the Babylonians, right? The Babylonians are constantly destroying and they're uprooting people and putting them into new places, right? What do the Persians do? They take over, everyone can go back home, we don't care, like as long as you pay your taxes and don't rebel against us, you can do whatever you want. And so Achashverosh is leading by conspicuous consumption, right? He's trying to impress everybody. He's trying to say, what are the goals of this administration? Everybody should aspire to wealth, and everybody should aspire to beauty. And what's the ultimate characterization of beauty? Remember, this is the party at the very end. All the people of Shushan, the governors, the soldiers, everybody's there. So what does he do? Like, he can't show off to the soldiers and to the governors. He could say, wealth and power. To the regular people of Shushan, wealth and power might be beyond their reach. But what is within their reach? Right? You can get a beautiful woman. Right? It's possible. So what does he do in order to personify and exemplify, the beauty everybody should be aspiring to? He calls Vashti. Right? Now, and remember, the king, Roei Pnei HaMelech, nobody gets to see the king, etc., etc., etc. Vashti is mortified by this. Right? Even forgetting, what her lineage may have been, who she may have come from, even forgetting about that. She's in her own party with the women because it would be a calumny for a woman to appear like that in front of all the men, not just the governors and important people, the commoners. And the king can't even be seen by all but the most important officials. And she's supposed to stand there like a model walking down the runway in front of the commoners of Shushan. She's mortified by this and she refuses to do so. But what does it mean, right? What does it mean for the king? It's a disaster. Right? His whole party, 6 months of this entire diplomacy, the job of this diplomacy was to tell everybody, right, conspicuous consumption. Everybody should drink and have a good time and be relaxed.
It again tells me that he wasn't really with it. He was drunk because if you think about the culture, women and men were separate. Woman doesn't show up in front of men.
Oh, okay.
So
And
he didn't
he's-
have any judgment at that point.
I mean,
So he was
you
drunk.
certainly can read it that way. Should you
Yeah.
decide? The Megillah doesn't say that, though.
Doesn't
Megillah
say
doesn't
that, but the fact from knowing from the customs and the
Right, so he's
mentality
trying
of these
right.
people.
So what he's trying to do, right? What he's trying to do is certainly a power play, and Vashti doesn't go for it, right? And that's why it's a disaster. It's a political disaster.
Something is undone, basically.
Right. So what's he going to do? Right. What is Achashverosh going to do? If he's like, she refused to obey my command, off with her head, then he's going back to the Babylonian model of being, any slight. On the other hand, if he just lets it go by and doesn't do anything, then he's trying to convince everybody he can control an empire. He can't even control his own wife. So what is he going to do? So he consults with his advisors, and the advisors are like, look, you can't say it's a personal slight, because then it'll seem petty, and, by Yivez, right, the same term Haman uses, by Yivez Beinav, right, it'll be too small and insignificant. So instead, what'll you do? It's perfect, because you've got an ultimate unifying factor for everyone in the kingdom. Right? Not everyone can aspire to wealth, and not everyone can aspire to power, but every man in the kingdom wants to be a king in his own home. Right? So instead of saying to the people of Ethiopia, the enemy is Somalia, and the people of India, the enemy is Pakistan, what do you tell everybody? No, you're all in it together. The enemy is women, right? We need to get together to put down the women. That's what we need to do. Right? And that is the example that he's trying to set. So what happens, right? Vashti is her crown is taken away from her and to be given to
No,
another.
he couldn't even decide on that. He had to consult.
Right.
It didn't come from him, this
Right.
decision.
Right. Well, he consults again. I don't know the extent to which you want to. Do you want to ding a guy too much for making a fairly significant policy decision like that? He wants to consult with his advisors. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but you can read it either way, and people do. People do. Okay. So what happens then? Right. So he needs a queen, and he gets a brilliant idea. Right. His servants or the young men, right? That they could use some beautiful women around the place, and so what do they suggest to him? What do they say? Get beautiful women from all around the empire and basically have them engage in the original version of The Bachelor, right? They all come, they all spend their night. Either they get a rose or they don't, whatever the case may be, right? It's a combination, I guess, of it's 2 parts The Bachelor, 1 part Miss America pageant, and 1 part real world Shushan, I think is really what it is. So what happens? Right? So what happens? This is brilliant. This is fantastic. Why? Because what's going to happen? You're going to have contestants from all over the empire coming. And what's each individual country, each individual province, what do they be rooting for? They want their person to win. But what does winning mean? It means you get to be the woman who the king gets to demean. Right? Everybody by rooting for their contestant is A, tacitly accepting Achashverosh as being the king, and B, tacitly accepting that he should have rulership and complete dominion over them. Right? It also creates the idea. Remember, Achashverosh was mortified. He couldn't get his own wife to listen to him. It sort of cements his reputation or the image of him being the alpha male, like constantly surrounded by a bevy of women who are at his beck and call. Perfect. There's a problem, though. Right? What's the problem with having a contest with contestants from all over 127 provinces? Eventually, what do you need to do with one of them? Select a winner. And what's India going to do if Miss Pakistan wins? It's going to be a huge problem. Who already thought of a solution to this problem? Mordechai! Mordechai knows this is going to be an issue. So what does he do? He tells Esther what? Don't tell your background. What's going to happen? They're going to ask you, right? Contestant number 1 is going to walk in. I am the proud representative of Hodu. Contestant number 2. I am the proud representative of Kush. What's going to happen with Esther? Tell them, oh, it doesn't matter. I just love Persia. I just want to be the representative of the Persian women, or I want to serve the king. That's all I want. Now, is she saying, I don't have any background, I didn't come from anywhere? Of course not, she's not going to say, that's ridiculous. Everyone comes from somewhere. She's just saying it's not important. Right, and where we're asking, like, really? She's going to be the queen of this large empire and nobody did a background check? Right, why didn't they do a background check? Why don't they want to find out that she's a Jew? Right, why does Achashverosh just give the crown to her? Because she's the solution to his problem. If they find out she's from Hodu or she finds out she's from Kush or wherever it is from, it'll ruin it.
So it has nothing to do with their perfumes and their baths and all those.
So that may be an aspect also, because we're told. Right, well, we're told in the Megillah.
At that time, they needed 6 months to just.
Right.
So again, that is sort of a cute point, because when you find out they spent 6 months in the myrrh oil and 6 months in the spices, at first all of the opulence of it, and then you got to wonder, like, what did they smell like if that's what they needed in order to come before the king. I mean,
That's
before
basically
indoor
softening-
plumbing, it was a very bad
It's
situation in the
softening their
olfactory
skin,
department.
basically.
But,
Basically softening their skin. to
right,
make
but forgetting about all that, right? But it's also a worthy point because right, what does it say? Esther is matzah chen b'nei Korah. Everybody likes Esther. Right? Why would everybody like Esther? It could just be she's a nice person, right? We know she's a nice person. Why? Because the poor guy is going and he's telling all these women, no, Achashverosh likes this, Achashverosh likes that, but they're just doing whatever they want, whatever they feel comfortable with, right? In general, when you take again, not to ruin the Megillah too much, but most of these women presumably are 12, 13 years old, right? You take 12, 13-year-old, regardless of gender, right, girl or boy, but you take, in this case, a 12, 13-year-old girl, and you tell her that she might become queen, right? She comes probably from a noble and wealthy family, not notorious for being the most yielding and pleasant and accommodating of people, especially when they come from a noble family and the person who's telling them what to do or suggesting what to do is a slave. Right? They're not notorious for being very kindly to
training those girls for
it could be. It could.
queenship?
I mean, it could be a lot of different things. It's not so clear, but it
look
could
at
be.
England. They take the woman and they train her basically.
It could well be. Again, there's nothing in the text about it, but it's a possibility. But what happens, right? So what happens when Esther comes? Esther says, okay, hey guy, whatever you say, that's what I'll do. You say these spices, I'll take these spices. You say don't wear those clothes, I won't wear those clothes. Right? She's very easygoing. And second of all, right, other people are going to get into fights. Why? Because again, you've got the right real world Shushan. You've got Miss Pakistan and Miss India, and they're together in the same palace. Right? Fights are going to break out. But who's going to want to pick on Esther? Right? She's nobody. She's from nowhere. Right? Nobody's going to have a problem with her background. Beautiful. So Achashverosh seizes the opportunity, and he's like, "This woman is perfect." Right? So Esther becomes the queen. All that is fine and good. All that is great, except right. What happens? Haman then comes and has this decree against the Jews, right? And she finds out again. She doesn't know about it until Mordechai tells her because the palace is very cut off from the rest of the world. But she finds out, and of course she sends the clothes to Mordechai because she wants Mordechai to take care of it. And Mordechai goes, "Can't do it, right? I'm not in a high enough position. This is your job." And we'll talk more next week when we get to biblical allusions about a lot of the content of what they're talking about. But Esther really doesn't want to go. Esther really doesn't want to go. Why not? Why is she so scared? Right? Is she really frightened? She's going to front in front of him. Remember why the king got angry last time at Vashti, right? Vashti refused to do what the king said after he requested her. What's going to happen? Esther's going to be knocking on the door of the king's inner chamber going, "Oh, king, it's been 30 days. I missed you so much." Right? Achashverosh, with the ego he has, never makes a mistake. Are they really worried that he's going to be like, there's a beautiful woman at the door and she's desperate for your attention because you haven't, she hasn't been with you for 30 days and she really loves you. Off with her head. That's not what she's worried about. What is she worried about, though? Right? What is she going to have to do? She's going to have to go in front of the king and say, "Please save my people." And what's the king's response going to be?
Who are they?
What do you mean, my people? Whatever happened to I'm Miss Persia? I don't have a background. Oh, I just want to serve the king. Right? What do you mean, my people? Every single thing you told me, the very reason why I selected you as queen is a lie. And she knows this is exactly what's going to happen.
When you're talking about this woman came from India and this one came from wherever.
Right.
She says, "I came from Persia. I came from Shushan." She doesn't have to say.
Right, but now
she is homegrown.
Right, but now she has to identify with her people. Right, for the first time.
The king doesn't ask those questions, actually.
Well, no, the king did. It specifically says that she wouldn't tell them.
My people are the Persian people, the Shushan people.
But there's an interesting twist on this.
Right.
The interesting twist is that she's like Miss America in the fullest sense of the word, because if the king believes Yesh Am Echad Mefuzam Mefarad, these people are spread all over, here she is. She represents everybody who's spread all over.
You can read it that way, but I don't think
It's a perfect. But she doesn't know that Haman said that to him.
Well, presumably she does because Mordechai would have told her. Presumably.
What do you know? What if he said? No, that's why the Shalom said, not what Foreman says. If
I understand that, but
she wouldn't be. I wouldn't
it's
want
still in the
to
Megillah.
that he said Yesh Am Echad Mefuzam Mefarad. We